this is my review of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Okay, so in this episode, things get a little bit interesting. So, it starts off with Yoshikage Kira dealing with a cat. I'll get to that in a minute. Not a normal cat, mind you. I'll get to that in a minute, but you guys can probably fill in the blanks. Well, and also because of that situation, it enables Hayato to kind of narrow down the identity of how his dad is kind of acting a little bit weird. So, it starts off with Yoshikage Kira as Kosaku dressing up to get ready to go for work. And as he's on his way out, Shinobu shows up running out of the basement in a panic and explains that she saw something scary, although she admits to herself that it's actually just an excuse for her to cuddle up against Kosaku so that she can pull him into a loving embrace. And while, again, Kira contemplates the idea of killing his wife again, she eventually starts telling a story about how she discovered a cat in the basement, and which catches Kira's interest. At which point she explains how she met the cat and tried to approach it, only for it to become hostile when she got too close. And she even tried playing into its good nature by showing her belly to pretend it's submissive, which is a really endearing scene for her. But ultimately she decides to stop humoring the cat and declares that she's going to throw things at it if it doesn't leave. At which point, the cat ultimately refuses, so she grabs a nearby sweeper broom and just starts swinging at it, which causes it to cling to the ceiling. At which point it's revealed that there's actually a hole in the cat's neck. At which point Kira realizes that it was most likely shot with the bow and arrow. And then she further explains that she swatted at it, which caused a whole bunch of things to fall down and collapse inside the basement. And Kira ultimately decides that he wants to go take a look and investigate. And he does, only to discover that in the chaos the cat died. So Kira is mainly investigates the cat because he realizes that there's a possibility it could be a stand user, considering the fact that it has a hole in its neck, and those are usually caused by stand arrows. And he knows from personal experience, so he would know. But usually the wound doesn't heal if it's a stand arrow related thing. So yeah, he knows. So yeah, he has a pretty good idea that's a stand user, but he never actually gets to figure out what it does because, again, the cat dies. And Shinobu is understandably pretty broken up over the fact that she may or may not have killed the cat by accident. But Kira merely tells her that it wasn't her fault, and then he proceeds to take the cat outside and bury it. He buries it in the backyard in the flower bed, and as he's burying it, he again contemplates the possibility of it being a stand user, but since it never manifested its stand, he has no idea what its powers actually are, but contemplates that at least the whole ordeal is over with, at least for now. Pointing out that if the Joestar group ever did find out about the whole situation with a possible stand user living in his backyard in his house, Kira would quickly be investigated and subsequently cornered by the Joestar group, and that's something he wants to avoid for now for obvious reasons. So with that, he goes inside. Several days then pass, at which point it rains for a better part of a week, actually. It rains for a very long time is the point I'm trying to say, but when it does finally stop raining, it declared on the radio by Kai Harada, who everybody's favorite news host, we suddenly see a stand manifest where the cat was buried. A stand called Stray Cat, which resembles a plant. So yeah, Stray Cat is initially very confused as to what it is. It knows that something happened to it, and knows that its body feels a little bit different than what it's used to, but it otherwise is completely confused as to what it is. Up until it sees Shinobu, who was trying to figure out where the cat was actually buried, since she knows Kira buried it in the backyard, but doesn't actually know where he buried it. At which point Stray Cat sees her and also sees the broom she's carrying, because she had just been continuing cleaning, and it was the same broom that she had accidentally killed the cat with. At which point Stray Cat realizes that it died and was reincarnated as a plant, and that it was Shinobu's fault, and then proceeds to try and attack her. And it does succeed. It blows off her big toenail, and she goes inside to patch herself up. At which point Kira she begins to panic because Kira shows up, and she begins to panic that the house is maybe haunted because of the curse of the cat. And Kira shows up to deal with it, trying to figure out whether or not the stand is a threat or not. And he begins looking into it, and after some investigation, begins to realize that it is indeed the cat. So yeah, and he also during this process he realizes that the cat isn't actually hostile to him, because he didn't kill it. Shinobu killed it by accident, but basically he realizes that the cat has a grudge against Shinobu and tries to defend her, but it doesn't work, and the cat eventually starts becoming hostile toward him, and Stray Cat begins controlling air to try and defeat Kira and try and kill him. So naturally Kira has to play on the defensive, trying to figure out how its stand's power works. And as it turns out, the stand is actually able to control air. It's able to use the little whiskers inside of its face to actually control air and even shoot off air pellets. And Kira uses Killer Queen to defend himself. He tries to in fact protect himself by stopping the cat's air bullets and defending himself, but the cat is creative. Stray Cat is very creative with the way it can use its stand. It actually blows up a nearby cactus with an air pellet and causes Needle to fly everywhere. And if Yoshikage Kira hadn't been shielding Shinobu's face with his hands, she probably would have died. But yeah, she passes out from the whole ordeal, having been attacked straight in the heart because Kira failed to protect her. At which point he declares that he's not going to let the cat hurt her anymore, and declares that its attacks aren't going to work against her anymore. Only for him to discover that it can actually manifest air inside of his bloodstream and then block up an artery and cause him to die that way. And realizing he can't actually pop it while it's inside his bloodstream, he uses Killer Queen to blow it up, which causes him to bleed, and he realizes that he underestimated Stray Cat and has to think of something fast to stop it from actually killing him. And eventually he just decides to pick up a nearby golf ball and chuck it at it because, well, it's a cat. So yeah, with Stray Cat thoroughly distracted by the golf ball, Kira realizes that he needs to get rid of it and make sure that it can't actually hurt him. Pointing out that it would be very bad if the Joestar group actually found out about Stray Cat, and also is uncharacteristically relieved that Shinobu is okay from the encounter. And he initially believes it to be because he's scared, because he actually came to care for her, but he also muses that it's possibly the possibility that basically he doesn't want her to die, because if she dies, then the Joestar group is going to come looking for him, and he doesn't want that, though it's probably a mix of the two. He's probably both A, scared that the Joestar group is going to come looking for him, and B, he's developed a bit of a affection for Shinobu, so he doesn't want her to get hurt. But in any case, after the whole ordeal, he digs up Stray Cat and moves it so that it doesn't attack him or the family anymore. While also trying to figure out how to actually kind of cover up the whole situation. And eventually he comes up with the idea that Shinobu hallucinated the whole thing, which wasn't true. And then patched her up and helped make her breakfast. So she's very relieved, and also develops a bit more of an affectionate crush on Kira, because she still believes that Kira is her husband. But as he's eating, two strange things happen. Specifically that one, Shinobu had actually made shiitake mushrooms for him and her, and she had specifically taken it out so that he doesn't eat them, because apparently Kawajiri didn't like shiitake mushrooms, and Kira is just kind of gobbling them up because he didn't know this fact about him. So Kira admittedly has a bit of a panic. And after trying to figure out what else happens, as he's eating, he spies Hayato and his knife as he's cutting up his eggs and his food and all his breakfast, and realizes that Hayato is likely spying on him. And he's also grown a little bit suspicious of Hayato over the course of this episode. Namely that Hayato doesn't say goodbye to him and just kind of leaves, whereas here he just kind of leaves and slams the door again. And Shinobu even comments that it is a little bit uncharacteristic of him, because he never actually says goodbye. But in case Kira gets ready to go to work, and Shinobu greets greets him goodbye, and also tries to get him to kiss her, which he doesn't do because he's not really her husband. And he just kind of leaves after saying goodbye, and she becomes upset that Kira won't kiss her goodbye, but remarks that she'll manage to seduce him soon enough. At which point it's revealed that Hayato didn't actually leave for the day. As it turns out, Hayato's been skipping school so that he can spy on his parents and try and figure out who exactly this Kosaku Kawajiri actually is. Pointing out that over the last couple of days, Kira has since swapped into a smaller size shoe because, as it's revealed early in the episode, Kosaku Kawajiri's feet are a lot bigger than Kira's feet, and Kira knows this and realizes that if he doesn't switch out his shoes, he's likely going to have a problem. Which is odd enough, but then there's also the fact that Hayato realizes that Kosaku is eating shiitake mushrooms, which again, we've already established, Kosaku Kawajiri did not like one back when he was alive. So Hayato, from that conclusion, is able to conclude that something is up with his dad. Well, dad in air quotes, and then goes back to his room to review some of his footage, pointing out that not only is it weird, but that he's also noticed that why would Kosaku Kawajiri be practicing his name over and over, and he realizes that's a little bit odd, and also notices something else a little bit odd too, namely that Kosaku has moved a giant bowl of potting soil and some cat food into his attic, and into his shoe closet, and upon further investigating, Hayato discovers that it does indeed lead into an alternate area in the attic, and then proceeds to go up to investigate. And as he's doing that, Kira is actually on his way to work when he discovers several kids are actually wearing the same hat that Hayato wears, and then concludes that it's actually part of the school uniform, and also realizes that Hayato's hat has been on the post for a couple of days, and realizes something is off, and goes back home to investigate. So, at which point Hayato begins to look into what exactly is going on in the attic, and he discovers Stray Cat, and isn't entirely sure what it is at first, but notices that there's actually a big thing of cat food, and also notes that it's too dark in there, so he opens the window. At which point Stray Cat begins to wake up, and Hayato realizes that it can only move when it's in the light, and also notices that it's very cat-like. And then he goes to close the window, but is suddenly attacked by Stray Cat, who is trying to stop him from closing the window. And Hayato realizes that he's been pinned by something very air bubble-like, and is being floated up toward the ceiling, and isn't actually able to, escape. And to make matters worse, Kira has come home to actually investigate what's going on in the attic, and even hears the whole fight between Hayato and Stray Cat, and immediately goes to investigate. At which point Hayato realizes that he needs to do something quick, but then, beginning to realize that he's actually being pinned into the air by air bubbles, decides to pop one, which causes the air to fly out and close the window, putting Stray Cat to sleep. At which point Hayato covers his tracks by picking up the bag of cat food and sprinkling it everywhere, and then throwing it next to where Stray Cat was, before hiding in a box. At which point Kira comes upstairs to investigate what's going on, concludes that Stray Cat just kind of wore itself out by trying to get the cat food, and also concludes that apparently the window was open just enough that it could wake up, but decides to cover it up so that it doesn't actually wake up again. And then declares that he's glad that Hayato wasn't actually in the room, because if he had, he would have had to kill him. At which point Hayato finally realizes that Dad isn't actually Dad, and begins to realize that he's been impersonated by somebody else, and begins to try and conclude who the hell this guy is. So yeah, this episode mainly just helps Hayato finally realize that dear old Dad isn't actually dear old Dad. So yeah, Kira unwittingly has become, well, he's basically, long story short, he hasn't quite yet realized that Hayato is actually spying on him, though he did come close to figuring it out, but as concluded, as it turns out, Hayato, because Stray Cat was a thing, and because Kira tried to cover it up and hide it, Hayato wound up having concrete evidence that Kosaku Kawajiri isn't actually who he says he is. So yeah, that's going to beg the question of how is Hayato going to play this? He can easily continue to investigate, but now he knows that Kira is onto him, and is likely going to have to play a bit more carefully in order to actually, protect himself from a murderer, basically, who has taken his dad's face. So, yeah. In any case, yeah, that's going to be interesting when they address that, because Hayato is kind of investigating his dad. He's kind of making sure that trying to figure out who this guy is, and I'm imagining at some point he's going to try and get his findings to the Joestar group so that they can figure out that his dad isn't actually who he says he is, so that they can finally either kill him, defeat him, or whatever the hell. But the long story short is that Hayato now has concrete proof that dad isn't actually dead, and now he needs more evidence to actually convict his dad with, to actually prove that he isn't actually, well, his dad. But in any case, that's my review of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only $10 a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks, and I'm always saying thanks, so be sure to check those out in the description below as well. Also, if you want to see more videos from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one, whereas the bottom video is the video recommended to you based on YouTube's algorithm. So, if you want to try something new, or you want to see more of what you like, then be sure to check either of those videos out. But, regardless of whether or not you do any or all of those things, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!